everyone, and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name is David Edgar. I am your host, as always, and joining me this week to go through the 3-0 victory in Paisley, and of course, the latest on the Rangers managerial search is Martyn Ramsey. Hello, Martyn.
Hi, David. How are we?
Oh, delighted to have you here. And people say I only ever get you on after a defeat, so here you are, the victory. Happy, joy, right?
That's exactly it, yeah. Crushing 3-0 away win, and everything's rosy, right?
Well, we'll get to that. But I'm often accused of being over-optimistic, and maybe at times I am, and Panglossian is a word that's been used about me in the past, and maybe that's true as well when it comes to Rangers. But I must admit that they'd even managed to get me down and get me to the point where I was just utterly sick of the sight of them. And the Aberdeen performance was one reason. But the real kicker for me was Limassol, because I felt that was a holidaymaker performance. I thought that was guys who did not want to be on that pitch, who were hiding, who weren't giving their all, basically. I felt that verged into unprofessionalism, and that's what I can't handle as a supporter. So I was approaching yesterday's game with a little bit of trepidation, Martyn. The fact is, St Mirren, points-wise, not just because expectations are different, they literally had more points than us, and were in a good place. There was a lot of expectation on them, not from the bookies, strangely enough, and that's, I suppose, their job to know that sort of thing. But what you were there, what was the mood like in the terraces pre-kickoff?
Quiet, flat. I don't think anyone was bouncing out their bed on Sunday morning to get to the game. The holidaymakers reference you mentioned there about Limassol, obviously that's Grasshopper Zurich from 96, and Thursday night made that performance look like the Juventus energy of the time, natural or otherwise. It was just dreadful. Yeah, Sunday was one that, even before the deep unpleasantness of the last 7-8 days from Aberdeen on, was one that we'd kind of earmarked as being an awkward game, put it mildly. It's never a good game there, ever. And they've been turning up some results, haven't they, at the start of the season? It was, even in decent form, it was one with maybe a wee bit of concern. It was flat. I mean, the Union Bears do as they do, but even took them maybe a wee bit to get going, and completely understandably, we're at an impasse at the moment, and fans need something to get behind. And just rather, outside of the 90 minutes it's ahead of them. It's never about the 90 minutes, is it, really? And that's not there at the minute. So yeah, it was just flat and understated, and really just waiting with their arms folded, really, saying, look, well, what are you going to do for us today?
Yeah, I think that's the point. I think when you go to a game and you are expecting a certain level of performance that they haven't always offered this season. In fact, they haven't offered this season, full stop. And I had mentioned that before the Aris game. I said, I'm not sure what Rangers will get that will turn up. Will it be a team determined to show a reaction? Will it be a team that just turns in their usual, or will it be a team that feels sorry for itself and shits the bed? And that it was the third. So again, those were the three options I had in my head going into yesterday. Interesting team selection from Stephen Davis. He made 4 changes. I wanted wholesale changes, but didn't expect them. I understood the situation he was in. But he made 4 changes. The most interesting one of which, Martyn, was Zach Lovelace coming in ahead of Dessers and Lammers. And also, when he got injured after 35 minutes, the Bert Conterman rule still applies. It's never the shite ones. He brought on young Ross McCausland. Statements, I think. Statements.
Yeah. I don't know if you had much choice. I've been kind of to and fro about this. This is very much an April and a bad season type conversation. Just chuck the kids in for the rest of the season, because we'll be tolerant and patient with them, because we famously are. There is a very strong line of argument. I think it was maybe backed up on Sunday that they can't possibly be any worse than the first team senior options that we have. but by this, the other side of the coin is you don't want careers ruined by catching fire around this particular bin at this moment in time, and maybe there's an argument to protect them and keep them away from this. But Lovelace was good. He was direct. He obviously created the opening, and I thought McCausland did much the same. Fair play to the interim boss and those left kind of kicking their heels. There was a great still. I think as McCausland was getting stripped to go on, with both Lammers and Dessers kind of looking on behind. And there's an image for the season.
Yeah, and listen, I think that sometimes we forget that there are people behind this, and
Totally.
I don't want to kick guys when they're down, but it really was demonstrable that you've got £8 million worth of talent that you genuinely feel will not help you get a result against St Mirren. Now, there are a multitude of reasons for that: lack of confidence, lack of form, not settling. In the case of Lammers, where exactly does he go? All of these factors, but it really is a comment on where we are. The match itself started, I thought, strangely, in that I expected St Mirren to go for us. And because we don't always take into account the other team, I think that it's that slight flip in the expectations going into this. I thought they shat the bed a little yesterday, in that I expected them to just come out, but it wasn't a free hit for them in the sense that it normally would be. But I think because people out with, even some Rangers fans, let's be honest, were saying no, that St Mirren are going to win. It does change your expectation, doesn't it? And that can change your approach, that can change your mentality. And rather than really going for us early on, I thought they allowed us to settle into the match.
I could not agree more. Perhaps if it had been at Ibrox, and I think Aberdeen might have been in a similar boat, maybe not as pronounced as the St Mirren one, but Aberdeen would have quietly fancied themselves, with good reason, obviously, last week, given that if they could get ahead, they knew what was going to happen. And I think St Mirren, if they'd come to Ibrox, it might have been a different story. But you're absolutely right. With that in front of them, they fluffed their lines. They froze. They bottled it. They were quite timid. But the game, I still thought that early spell was still meandering. Nothing happened. We are the slowest team in a top flight league and have been for years. This is not a recent thing. It's not a Geo thing either. We are just so ponderous, and everyone in the back four needs a touch before anything can happen. And Lundstram needs 7, and it was just more of the same, really, until, again, Lovelace does something different, a wee bit more direct, a wee bit more purpose, and we got the breakthrough that I can't say I felt was coming. Don't know about you.
No, I didn't. Again, I think that, without trying to be too Reverend I Am Jolly, there was, you were waiting on somebody hopefully doing something. I don't think that there was any concerted pressure or whatnot in the match, and you were just hoping for, and that in the end is what happened. But on the slowness thing, I've mentioned this before. I think that you can have players that suit teams, and the big issue with John Lundstram is he doesn't suit us, because in matches where teams are quite happy to give up possession to us on the halfway line, he's not what you need. If you're a team that don't have a lot of possession, and therefore you really need to look after it when it comes, even if it is just making a simple pass, he's ideal. Like Sheffield United. But when you are being given the ball, then we need to move it quickly, obviously, to move people around against packed low block defences. And I just think that, I'm not saying he's a terrible player. I'm just saying that we really don't need the job he does. We do not need someone to do that. Maybe Europe, or certain away matches, but not in the vast majority of domestic matches we have. Now, add into that the clear lack of confidence, and you're right, 3 touches when you're hoping for 1 or 2 becomes 6 or 7. And the ball gets rotated 6 or 7 times more round the back than it should. And I think that was something about yesterday, especially when it went down to 10 men, that someone said to me, well, we controlled the game. And I thought, well, we did, but in that St Mirren allowed us, they were quite happy to give us the ball in our own halfway line, because they knew we were just going to, continually recycle it. And for me, it's about, when you're playing a side like that, what do they not want you to do? What do they not like? And one of the things no defence likes is being turned and facing their own goal. And we get the breakthrough from that, from Zach Lovelace doing exactly that, turns his man inside out, hits the byline, puts the cross across, and then you're at the game, it was maybe difficult to see. Ryan Strain, it's just a brain fart. I absolutely understand
Mm.
it, but he leans in and catches the ball with his hand, which deflects it away from the incoming Abdallah Sima. It is a penalty and it is a red card. I know that some of the harder thinking in Scotland say, well, double jeopardy. No, it doesn't apply. That's only if it's a genuine attempt to play the ball. If a handball is a denial of a goal scoring opportunity, and that one does come under the rank of deliberate handball, I think.
No, I totally agree. I didn't see at the time. I had no idea what was happening. I just thought Steamer had missed, which looked like a sitter. How has he A, managed to miss the target, and B, seemingly been able to put the ball behind him? But from our view, you're not really getting a good picture of that. And then clearly things were stopped, and that was able to be checked. Should it have needed a check? Was it not that obvious in play? I mean, ultimately,
I'll be honest. I'm obviously watching on the camera angle. I didn't notice it.
Okay.
In real time.
So
no, I mean, you could argue that. Yeah, you could argue the ref was closer, maybe should have seen it, but it was it was very quick. I look, I'm the first to get stuck into Scottish refs. I don't think this was a terrible one to have missed, because it really did happen, because Zach's fizzed it across, and there are two guys running in. Also, it's the blind side of the I think it would have been harsh, but when you saw the replay, you're like, oh my God, he's not only has he handled it, he's very deliberately handled it. It's deflected it away from the incoming Sima, who you see actually turn around and look, because he realises that it's not coming to him now. It ticked every box for both a red card and a penalty. Even the St Mirren manager admitted it.
Textbook need and use of technology, then, it would appear. But Lovelace, I remember at the time thinking, well, that's something we just don't see. Just people want to carry the ball into danger, which is also danger for the person carrying the ball, because you could be robbed of that. But if you do it well, it's clearly of danger to the opposition. So that in itself was a wee bit of excitement to those there. Just seeing that wee bit of invention and purpose, and then obviously that got converted into a chance that Tavernier wouldn't pass up.
Thankfully, and it was a bit of a pressure penalty, I think. So he does deserve a bit of credit. He was one of the ones I got very much stuck into last week, but he did respond. And then I thought Rangers, did make some chances. There's a header from Goldson, a terrific save from the goalkeeper. It genuinely is a terrific stop. And then a lovely bit of play. Nico Raskin comes on to just a beautiful cushioned header from Ross McCausland. I was a wee bit disappointed here, because although it's a good save by the goalkeeper, normally I don't get onto players when they get their head down and keep it down, because my pet hate is guys leaning back and smashing it over the bar. But he doesn't look at the goal. And I've watched the replay a dozen times to see if there's a wee glance. There isn't. If he had a wee glance, he'd have noticed that the keeper's far over to the far post, and there's a big gate. All he needed to do was just pass the ball calmly into the net. So I was a bit disappointed with the lack of composure there. But up to half time, I was relatively pleased. And then for the first 25 minutes of the second half, nothing. I mean, just complete inertia in that match, which obviously suited St Mirren, because they're down to 10 men. They're thinking, hang in it to the last 10 minutes. Yeah. And I don't think we forced the game at all in that period.
We didn't. And this is a terrible admission to make, but I'll make it anyway, because we're transparent on this show. Early in that first half, early in the second half, sorry, I did catch myself looking at my watch thinking, right, move this on, I'll get back to watch the football, forgetting that I was literally there watching football. In name only, perhaps, but the football that awaited me on television seemed a lot more appealing than what was happening, because it was just it was nothing. It really was that. And you're absolutely right. St Mirren were under no pressure. Why step out and give us a wee bit of space, hang in, and you never know from set pieces or whatever else what they could steal later on. It was just a nothing period.
And interestingly enough, though, Rangers do produce finally a bit of quality, a lovely move, just a great move, so out of keeping with what we've seen recently. But ends up with Nico Rashkin. This time there is composure, and he picks out the incoming Abdallah Sima. Lovely ball, perfect. Sima comes onto it, really nice finish, which is clearly something he has in his locker. Firstly, Martyn, a good goal, but secondly, that's 8 goals already for Sima in a misfunctioning side. He clearly can produce things. I think we might need to move him into the only Jack Butland has been a good signing category, because he's at least contributing, and he's not had a lot of help up there, let's be honest.
No, I think that's fair. He's awkward and he's gangly at times, and he does miss things, and he does make decisions that you're like, what on earth are you doing? So we have memories of those kind of players, and maybe too early shuffled into that box. But first time finishes and instinctive finishes, he knows where he is. He knows where the goals are, and that was just instinctively swept away. And I think you're right. He has to be one of the few names in the team sheet that are absolutely inked in. And yeah, that's absolutely fine. The frustration is, of course, that he's not ours. But I guess we'll take that kind of job if those numbers keep at that rate for the end of for the rest of the season, because by Christ, we need them from anywhere. But I think the takeaway from that goal was Raskin more than anything
A
else.
midfielder busting
How
into the
he's
box.
breaking lines, being able to get into dangerous positions, and as you said, because you're absolutely right, that first effort in the first half encapsulated a lot of frustrations I have with Raskin. He's one of the few players that is absolutely determined to try and carry the ball forward, and is happy and keen and willing to do it. I just haven't seen much evidence of the use of that ball when he has carried it forward 10, 15, 20 yards. His final ball has been lacking. He runs into clusters and runs into problems, and clearly can't seem to, hit the target at all. But there was a moment of composure. It was a good chance. I mean, he was in a lot of space further up the field than he's been in. I guess we maybe need him finding those balls, finding those passes, having that vision a wee bit deeper, breaking those defences that aren't giving up the spaces he got there. But it was good to see him up there. And he was calm, and he delivered it right where Seema wanted it. So that was my takeaway from that.
Yeah, and again, it's almost like 2 glaring examples. Zach beating his man, hitting the byline, and Raskin busting into the box, breaking the lines. It's kind of like, right, lads, that that stuff you don't do enough of.
Yeah, take the risks in terms of movement or in terms of that pass to get into positions where you can create easy chances. We don't create enough sitters. We don't create enough easy chances. We haven't for years. And funnily enough, when you do, you score a lot more goals. But it takes a gamble, and it takes cohesion and chemistry, I guess, between players as an attacking unit to get the chance creator into that position where Raskin found himself. We don't get in those positions enough to then create the cutbacks, which just need swept away far too often, as we've discussed umpteen times since we
concede it.
We concede it. That second goal in Cyprus, that is my Vietnam. I see that in my sleep. But what we do isn't that. It's just chucking the ball in from deepish, from wide, and just kind of hoping that something happens. And if you do it 60 times a game, something does happen. But that was exactly the kind of goal that we don't see enough of. We've seen it briefly. I think we saw it the first goal against Livingston, that 4-0 win early in the season. Where Cantwell broke the lines and it came back. I think Lammer scored. But we don't do it anywhere near enough. Just because as an attacking unit, they're never fit enough. The same players are never fit enough. Some of them just aren't good enough. We've just never had consistency of numbers, I guess, to build that cohesion and chemistry and understanding, because you need that. But that was a little glimpse of what we're so badly lacking.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. And after that, confidence being an ethereal but important thing, Rangers actually started to play some nice stuff. Cyril Dessers got a chance, but as we've already mentioned, right now he looks as though he doubts very much he could hit the legendary cow with the cows on the arse with a banjo, and he just sclaffs it straight at the goalkeeper. You text me immediately, broken, and that's what he is at the moment. If he's to do anything at Rangers, it'll be a major rebuild job for a new manager, and I think it's an if, because I think you can get to a stage where the fans have just completely given up on you. But we did get a third, and what a goal it was. James Tavernier getting on the end of his own rebound, smashing it into the top corner, a real beauty. And we leave with the 3 points, which I know the way everybody's feeling at the moment. You say, oh, it doesn't matter. It does matter, right? There's a difference between 10 points and 7 points. 7 points is a big ask. 10 points is done. Might as well just hand it over. So also just being able to kind of create a bit of space to go into the international window and make this choice about the manager. Now, nobody's fooled Martyn. Oh, he beat St Mirren 3-0. We're brilliant. 10-man St Mirren. I thought this game indicated the potential that you might have in a good way, but also the negatives that a new manager needs to overcome. And I think we all realise that the squad, such as it is, imbalanced and in certain positions overloaded, in other positions not enough and too old at that. The new manager coming in, I think, will end up picking sides that maybe aren't recognisable to us immediately, as because if it's a new manager who's a system manager, I play a certain way manager, and it's looking like it's going to be that, then what you see at clubs when managers like this come in, because they can't, even in England, they can't bring in all the players they want in their first window, is having to kind of make do. And it's almost when the Moneyball thing comes in, where he may look at a youngster and say, I'm going to play you, even though there's a more expensive or a guy on a bigger wage or a more experienced player, because I need someone who does A and B, and you do A and B, and he doesn't. And I do wonder if we might see team lineups that maybe none of us anticipated that gradually change as windows happen. But certainly in the immediate thing, a manager just sits down and looks at it and says, right, who can do this specific task I need for this specific role?
Well, we can't see the same teams. No one's coming in here and flicking a switch. I don't imagine. I mean, try to look at it as dispassionately as possible, which is obviously ultimately impossible for us. You'd be off your head to take this job at this minute in time, especially if you are a systems manager, because this squad is either players that just are not good enough and just been horrific buys. They're either broken toys who can be, but can also break down in tears and in a huff or injured, or they've been good servants who are just done. They don't have any energy. They'll flicker and they'll contribute occasionally. Of course they will, but in terms of building anything around them, they just look exhausted. Or you're Jack Butland. Those are the four. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what manager we get in. That squad isn't getting close to anything. So if you are a systems manager, I really don't know what you do. This is not when Beale came in. This is not with a World Cup in the middle and then a few games in December and then right, January, let's go. This is the start of October. There are a lot of games to be played with this squad. And it's going to be a hell of a Churchillian speech to get tunes out of some of them, either ever or just again because you're asking them to go to the well maybe just once too often. It was a horrific summer by the looks of it, and reaping the rewards of not killing some of those admirals and saying thanks for your time. Off you go. before it's absolutely obvious, because they're now they can't do what they once did, and that creates its own pressure. So I think you're right. I think we might see some combinations and some teams and maybe some youth. But if it's the same guy coming in picking the same 11s that we've seen and fail, but just with a different kind of message, then it's going to be one hell of a message.
So I don't subscribe to that fully. I think that a manager can make a difference. Now, is it enough of a difference? That's a different question. I also think that there will be players there that are just dispensed with. That a manager, I can't get anything out of you. You don't fit anything I want to do, and therefore I'm not going to use you. And there will be guys who come in as temporary stopgap solutions. But for me, I think there is an understanding. There's still things that can be won this season. There's still achievements that can be made. I think it's more for fans to begin to see things like an identity, like a style, like a future, basically. And even if it means, look, we're going to need an upgrade in that position and in that position, but just to see an overall, a direction of travel. And I was speaking to a mate of mine who said to me, I don't know why Rangers fans are all going on about style of play. It was about winning. Walter didn't have a style of play. And I said, well, no, but Walter won things, right? I would also argue that these days football's a bit different. But I think that if you look at Bale, when Bale came in, Rangers won a lot of games right at the start. We were fucking awful, but we won a lot of games. And that didn't get everyone solidly behind them. I think that a new manager has to show and demonstrate, I have a clear idea of what I want this to be, but also you can see it taking shape. I think that's the first challenge for a new manager. Rather than coming in and saying, right, I'm going to get Cyril Dessers playing well, it's just getting a squad of players together, that ones that he trusts, and saying, I'm going to build something that the fans can see where this is going. Yes, it may need upgrades, but we will get there.
I take that point. In theory, I completely agree. I'm not one that says managers don't change anything. I'm so despondent with this group. I think that's different in the summer. If someone comes in and it doesn't work immediately, but fans can say, well, I can see what he's trying to do. We've been there before. Celtic clearly have been there before recently. So a bad start can be negated by a kind of confidence and just buy-in. That some players just need time to adapt. I don't think the players are there. You're talking about bringing in, who are we bringing in to play in this way? I think it's been made clear that in order to be successful in this country, won't work in Europe. In fact, it's very much the opposite in Europe. But to be successful in this country now, because the gap between Rangers and Celtic is so big compared to the rest, that you need to be aggressive, you need to be quick, and you just trample over teams, really, at a speed that they just, doesn't matter how many men behind the ball they've got, they'll just pull out of position far too easily, and easy chances get created. That's fine. I think we all kind of, or most Rangers fans, I think, would agree with that. But you still need the players. Who have we got that's quick?
No, that's what I mean. That when I say you'll see guys that you maybe didn't expect, that's when a new guy comes in and he says, "I'm plucking him from the B team." Why? Because he's really fast.
Well, that would need a working knowledge of the B team that I don't have, and I would love that to be the case. I'm just looking at the first team pros here.
And by the way, these guys will not be. They won't go into the first team and be absolutely brilliant. I'm just meaning that they will be a component, and it might be a component that you need to replace in the first window, if that makes sense. I'm just saying that it's all about building blocks towards what you want it to be.
And I think your point about Beale and Walter and whatever else is fine. And I think fans do just want to see some entertaining football. But I'll tell you this: if Beale had turned in, or Beale's Rangers had turned in stodgy, poor performances at Hampden, but we won both games by one goal, we wouldn't be mourning.
No, but that's the key
two
point.
tops in the back. Yes. So you're allowed to be like that at Rangers.
If you win.
Walter found, if you win big games. You can't be like that every week. And Rangers were never like that every week.
No, we played good football. We Gaz out louder, for fuck's sake.
Exactly. But in big games, where you only have to win by one, you have to beat them by one. We'll do that then. And we will put up with that. I promise you, Rangers fans would put up with that. And you can put all your aesthetics back in the box if we were winning every game by one, and certainly the big games,
Mm.
and the ones
And the
that they made the difference in the end of a season, and that's how Bale's career here was derailed very quickly. And I asked him in his first, and he's unveiling, he's a wee bit cheeky with it. Look, I know managers hate coming at this time of a season. It must be so difficult, but tough. That's the reality of football. I bet you can't wait till the summer. But do you need to win a cup, and really win a cup by beating them, in order to give that belief, that momentum, into the summer? And he kind of dismissed it. Well, we want to win every competition. He said, well, wanting and doing are two very different things. And I think I was right. He had to win. So he had to get something on the
No,
board, a
you're
meaningful
totally
win.
right.
And a new manager will be very much the same. For all grand plans and designs, you need to show that you can enable and empower a Rangers team to go toe-to-toe when it matters. Not when the sun's out in May and everything's lost, but when it actually counts. And if that's 1-0 or it's 4-0, I'll let you into secret. We don't care.
No, the counterpoint to that as well is that if you're winning 4-0 every week and losing six times a
Exactly.
season to Celtic, you're still getting sacked. So Nirvana is somewhere between the two, isn't it? It's winning games, playing well. I don't mind. No, you're not going to play well every week. None of us think
Yeah.
that. It's just that with this Rangers team, they never play well.
If you're scraping
And
by 5 weeks out of 6, there's a
yeah,
chance
that
that
there's a
it's going
problem
to
that,
fall. Yeah,
of
exactly. And
course.
yeah, we're on the same theoretical hymn sheet. This squad is such a worry, and I
The
don't
squad
know.
is the squad's going to need to be disassembled and reassembled,
It's
unless he is a
every
magician.
year we've said this.
Absolutely, but
Um,
that's where we are, because decisions that haven't been taken in the past about players, keeping aging players too long, and then bad recruitment. On the board front, they've had criticism, deserved criticism, I think, because you do make the decisions if you're in those jobs. But they let Beale go without a director of football, make all the signings. It's said that Graham Souness is advising them, among others, from the football community. A sensible move, or do you think that maybe it's a case of, well, you should have already known to do this beforehand?
the soonest thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I read what was in the paper because someone sent me it. I'm not sure it was much more than a phone call to have a brief chat. I think that's very different from being, I don't know, like a consultant on a process, which I didn't really take that to be the case. Who knew the press would just exaggerate what could have been a very simple phone call? Look, we're thinking about him. What do you think? Look, I have a lot of time for the man. It's no surprise. He's in the front cover of one of my books I'm just looking over right now. I'm not sure he'd be my go-to person for any football matters in 2023. We are crying out, I know, for that Souness influence and that type of character, and that's what we need back. And as I said on other shows, of course he was the right man at the right time, but the time was the important thing. The opportunity that was there in 1986 was the big factor. That's the real story. And we're not in 1986, so it's going to need something a lot smarter and a lot longer in its implementation. I don't know where we are, David. To be honest, you will maybe more than me. It looks like we're possibly a 2-horse race with Clermont and Muscat at the moment. That's certainly how it reads to me. Again, from the outside, I got the feeling last week that they were quite in on Lampard and maybe taken aback at just how visceral that reaction was, and maybe had to stop those plans. It wouldn't surprise me if they were speaking to other people just to be kind of thorough, but I'm not sure how much attention they were paying to that. To can imagine conversations like, "Did you take any notes there?" I was kind of finishing connections at the time. They were. I get the feeling they were quite in on Lampard, and now they're doing it again. So we shall see. I know nothing. Obviously, I'm just trying to read the tea leaves from out here or the signals. But like I've said before, unless there's an experienced director of football and there's a winning Euro Millions ticket, asking one, there is no magic bullet manager. There's no guy coming
No,
in
there
and
isn't.
fixing
And
this.
it will take time, unfortunately. And I know we're not patient and we've said this before, but it's a fact. It will take time unless you get very lucky and you just get an absolute genius who wanders in and does something dramatic. Well, it'll be settled, the new manager, by the time we come back, obviously, with it being the international break. Martyn, thank you so much for joining me today. And if people want to get more of your wisdom and more of that Souness fella that we spoke about, where should they go?
Oh, they should certainly be on Patreon to listen to whatever I've got to put out on a Tuesday morning. Sorry, current affairs. I think, David, we do a lot of that, and just
Yeah.
there are a couple of books if you so
Are
wish.
there?
There are, in fact, and another one that is very imminent. So Revolution, Rangers 86 to 92 is available at all good bookshops, and the next volume, The Pursuit of History, Rangers 92 to 98, the swagger and complacency of the 90s, is out this month at some point. I'm still wrestling with the publisher to get a date. But anyways, get a pre-order. We'll get them as soon as they arrive here. They'll be straight back out the door. But yeah, that's coming soon.
Having read the first one, I can thoroughly recommend people you put some of your pennies towards this. A wonderful, wonderful read. Right then, folks, thank you so much for joining me. As I say, it'll be a fortnight before we're back here on the flagship, but we never go away. We're on Patreon, patreon.com/Heart and Hand. Come and join the thousands of subscribers who are there, and we've got a 92% retention rate. So clearly, once you sign up, you'll find something you enjoy. My thanks to Martyn. My thanks to our executive producers in London, Paul Myers and Mike Lee. And until then, let's all get our heads down as we await the new Rangers manager. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.